evening, everybody. Welcome to the show. I want to send peace and greetings to all the gods and goddesses that are on the path doing the actual work. I just wanted to get on a few minutes early to do the quick announcements, and then as we wait for the next few minutes for Father Sebastian to call, who's going to be our special guest tonight, as you see, that we will be discussing vampiric spiritual practices. Again, just to let everybody know, we will be having a show Thursday, which is the 6th. Next Tuesday, we're going to have Val Cadman on the show. And then on Thursday the 8th, we are going to have Sister Oni on the show. I will be doing a show on the 13th. I don't have nothing to cover that. Now, the 15th, there will not be a show because we will be in New York. And those that are taking the classes, there will be a class this week. Then we are taking a 2-week break, resuming 2 weeks after that. We have the event on October 25th to the 27th, where we're starting to develop a good itinerary of speakers, guest speakers and presenters. I'm looking forward to that. We got some new people that have stepped up, some veterans that have been around. But I'm looking forward to seeing some of the new people do a presentation. That's going to be fun and interesting. That event, October 25th to the 27th, last week in October. Again, there'll be workshops, classes, presentations. There'll be rituals over those several days, and just some kind of socializing and hanging out too. It's going to be a fun time. And believe it or not, we're in August now, so I'm kind of looking forward to that. It's close to it. So believe it or not, this year's flying by. Big time. We also have the ritual now 29 days from now, since we're in August, on Friday, August 30th, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here in Fort Lauderdale. The ritual of the pentagram of Set. That'll be 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Friday, August 30th here in Fort Lauderdale. If you are interested in coming to that event and attending the event, send me an email to request an invite, just so we can make sure we're on the same page. It's a good fit for you and it's something you want to do. Just send an email, request an invite. Readings and consultations. As I said, now I'm offering specific readings if you so choose. You can do a reading with the Goetia demonic bands. You can do a reading with the Loa, the Budon deities, with the Orishi if you choose, spirits of the dead. You can do an Egyptian rune reading. Specify that in your email. If you don't specify, I kind of just go with my instinct and use whatever I see fit. If it's a consultation, specify that in your email. Also in your email, if you are requesting a consultation or a reading with me, please be clear on the days and times you're available and the time zone that you live in. Very important. Kind of saves back and forth email. For all the aforementioned things, you see the email in the description box. That's the way to contact me, reach out to me, to get with me on these things. All right, let me just double check, make sure Father Sebastian has the correct call. All right. Just send him in. Second. All right, just trying to get him. Bear with me, people. Try to get this flowing here. All right. I just made sure I know he had the number, as we did a Google Calendar invite when we talked, but I just want to make sure. So I just resent him the call-in number. So how the format's going to work with Father Sebastian, he's going to call in live. We will take all this for Father Sebastian in the chat, all right? So I won't open any phone lines per his request. So again, why we have him here, just like any other guest, please formulate your questions. You can type them in early. Don't matter how early you type your questions in. put them in caps, label a question, because, we kind of want to take advantage of the time. Again, as I've said many times before, when we have these authors on the show, these guests that have put books out on occult and left-hand path topics, it's very important we utilize that time for our benefit, so we could ask questions, so we can learn, and kind of pick the brain of the author that wrote these books or do what they do. What inspired them? What gave them the creative intuition to create these things? These are the things we want to ask, and especially if you've read, when we bring a guest on the show, if you've read their books, I would hope you have read the books and you have actual questions on what it is you read. So, as we go through the process of the show this evening, feel free to type your questions in early, because as you know, I'll go back, as I always do, to the beginning portion of the chat and just feed the questions. So the questions to Father Sebastian will be directly from the chat. There won't be no call in, just so we can keep it flowing and smooth. All right. So again, feel free to type them in at any point as we do the interview with him. So we're going to talk about the vampiric elements, what we're going to discuss. If you've read Vampire Magic, these are his two books. Well, he's got a couple, but these are the two key ones that I would recommend. Vampire, Sanguinomicon, the Lexicon of the Living Vampire, and probably his most popular one, which came out before that, Vampire Magic. I do want to discuss the elements, or the vampiric elements, in the Vampire Magic book, which are, to me, the highly spiritual aspects of this path, a path, in my opinion, that's very misunderstood, very misinterpreted. People have the wrong ideology of it because they don't really understand it. Probably one of the paths on the left-hand path that is of a very high spiritual nature and vibration. It's not for everybody. We've talked about that many times over the years. I've done shows here and there on vampirism. I haven't done tons of shows on it. You'll see several scattered throughout the archives. There's a few. But the spiritual practice of it take a lot of focus, a lot of concentration, a lot of discipline, understanding the nature of it and how it works, and dispelling a lot of the mythology that's involved in it. Okay. So that's the plan, to go through some of those aspects, and then, time pending, if there are other things we have time to get to, I will do that. But we'll see how things flow. As you know, Father Sebastian travels extensively and does a lot of events in the country and outside the country. He's known pretty much on a wide scale level in the vampire community. But we'll talk a little bit about that as soon as we get him here. So I'm just waiting. So, excuse me, so we can get him on the phone line. And then we will begin. I will also, while we're waiting for those, I will be sending out an email sometime tomorrow for those that are on the list for the meetup in New York on August 17th. I'm going to create a group email, and just be conscious it's a group email when you respond. If you're going to respond, everybody's on there. I will create the group list so we could all communicate leading up to that day. I will keep people contacted as we're heading that way. Again, I'm looking to meet up, as I said, on 34th and 7th Avenue, right across the street from Penn Station. There's a McDonald's right there. I'm thinking right in the front there. It's a very easy landmark to find. Right when you come out Penn Station, you just cross the street. We can meet right in the front there. I'm thinking about 6-ish, 7-ish. So I'm going to create the group email to send that notification out. And then that actual day or the day before, I'll confirm the exact time. But I'm going to say 6-ish, 7-ish. Looks like a suitable time. All right. So that's going to be the plan. I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be a nice little session, a little get together. I think we got about 10 or 12 people, might be slightly more than that. And it looks like all those people are committed to show up. So we'll have a nice little build session, little get together. We'll kick it. We'll get a little food, and just, hey, I ain't got nowhere to be. I'm off. So we could chill till whenever. We just kind of go with the flow. So kind of looking forward to that. And then we'll pick up from there, and whatever, we'll just discuss whatever comes to mind. I'll kind of use it. We're kind of going to use it as a free for all. Nothing really specifically planned to discuss. I'm gonna leave that up to you guys. If you guys want to just talk about, anything, build on anything that you see fit, we will do that. All right. So that's going to be on the 17th. So those that are on that list, look for that email to come sometime tomorrow. For those that did the work for the class, I did get a couple of your emails. I did not have time to respond to it today. I will try to get to that tomorrow. Dion, I got yours. And I also got Lady Bree. So I'll look at that when I get a chance. Hold on one second. He's texting me right now. All right. Hold on. I'm waiting for his response. He just sent me a tag. All right. So again, that'll be on the 17th for the get together, and I will get to looking at those emails. I did see a couple before I came online, but again, today I just didn't have the time to get to it. I will get to it tomorrow. And again, we will have, for those that are in this current ongoing online session, we will have a class this Saturday, and then there will be a 2-week break. All right, which I know most of you know that. I'm just reiterating it. We'll take a 2-week break and then finish the following 3 weeks up to round it off. All right. That's pretty much what we got going on for the moment. I think I covered most of it. I don't think I left anything out or forgot anything. If I did, I'll reiterate it. And then, as I said earlier, the ritual, which, looking forward to that. We've taken a couple months break, and we'll be back in action at the end of this month. We didn't do anything in June. We didn't do anything in July. It was kind of good because we kind of rejuvenated, recuperated. So it'll almost be 3 months since we did something come the end of this month, even though we're doing something this month. But by the time we get to the end of the month, it'll be, about 3 months. And it's good. We took a break. People were able to do some personal work, things of that nature, which I think was important. Okay, I think I got him on the phone right here. Greetings, and how are you?
I am well. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Normal vampire business.
No, I know you're extremely busy, man. So we're up and running. I explained to everybody we're just going to do a brief interview with you in the beginning. Questions will only come from the chat. So if you could, I know a lot of my listeners are already familiar with you, but just in case we have some new people listening that, again, may not know exactly who you are, what it is you do, if you can briefly introduce yourself and also give your contact information, your website where people can reach you, just so people know who you are.
Well, my name is Father Sebastian. That's my persona, my nom de plume, and my promoter identity.
Okay.
I go by the name Father because when I went into the vampire community back in the 90s, there was just a bunch of LARPs, which was great because Vampire the Masquerade is a great contributor to the vampire mythos.
Right.
But there was no organized lifestyle community, or there was no vampire community. And I had a vision that I would birth to that. And it's kind of manifested. And so I'm the father to my clan, and I feel like I'm father to a lot of the vampire community.
Okay.
And of all identities.
Right.
So it's not a religious title. and it's a more of a title that I prefer instead of going by king or lord or whatever, some romantic aristocratic title. Father was more appropriate for what I am.
Gotcha.
I'm the impresario of the Endless Night Vampire Ball, which is a esoterically minded and run event, which we use real magic to run events, mixing with improvisational theater in Europe and America. We do Los Angeles, Tampa, Vegas, all over the world. Our main events in New Orleans. We're very in tune with the local cities that we go into, and we try the local culture. Right. And my biggest passion is vampire philosophy, which I express in my book Black Veils, which is available on Amazon. Okay,
did that just come out, Father Sebastian? Or is that something?
What's that?
That book you just mentioned.
Black Veils is a reboot, an update of all of my previous texts.
Okay.
In a lexicon format, divided into pillars, which are groups in Black Veils, like rituals, magic, vampire virtues, vampire concepts, like chivalry and nobility and virtues that we should live as people of evolved mental conceptualization.
Right.
And also my esoteric system, which is called Strigavai, which I learned from some members of the Vampire. So I have a very, very strong affinity teachings. I have certain disagreements with them. Right. But the Temple of the Vampire was the first magical organization that I encountered after I discovered Wicca. So it's had a very big influence, and I have a lot of respect for their deeper content. Okay. And then I'm a fangsmith, and I ritualize the fang making experience. So when someone gets a pair of fangs, they feel empowered and they get a new name, and it's like a rebirth for them. It's a rite of passage. Right. And my fang clients I call saber-tooths.
Right. And your information, as far as I know, you mentioned that last time you're on the show. I know you have a website. Where can people reach you for the things you're talking about, your events and the fang making things that you do?
My events can be found at endlessnight.com, and my fang smithing and books can be found at fathersebastian.com.
Okay. And is there an event that's upcoming in the very soon that you might want to put out there for people that they're aware of your next upcoming
absolutely.
Event? Sure.
The next huge event is the New Orleans Vampire Ball, produced by Endless Night Productions, which is my team, at the House of Blues on October 26, 2019.
Oh, wow.
And our theme is Black Magic.
Cool. All right. I appreciate that. I know when the last time you were here, I know you said your older books, and you just mentioned the Black Veils is kind of an update of that. What I wanted to, as I told you before you came on the show when we had a brief conversation, I wanted to talk about the elements of vampire magic, the spiritual practices of it. So I'm just going to kind of go through some of the stuff you had in your book, and I just want you to kind of elaborate on it, your thought process, what motivated you to write it. And again, I know your magic book, I know, as you said, it does have, you said it at the time, last time you had, did need to be updated. So I'm just going to kind of use just some of the comments, the format from that. So first I want to, because I know this is an important technique in vampirism, your thoughts. I found it interesting when you talked about out-of-body experiences in the book, astrally traveling. In your system, how would you explain or teach or your thoughts on the importance of this astral travel, and how do you apply Vampiric practices?
Well, astral projection is something that a lot of different traditions. Okay. Right. And there's a specific way that I approach it. I've experienced astral projection is best done, in my opinion, in a meditative state. Okay. And it's very similar to an NDE. It's basically a near-death experience without the death. Your consciousness there's different forms of OBE, out of body experience.
Right.
You're conscious, and there's many reasons for that. Okay, vampires do it to basically living vampires in particular, which is an energy vampire. Okay, does not feed on life force from other humans in a malicious and negative way.
Right.
They do it in a very much a primal. I hesitate to use the word predatory.
Okay.
Okay, because that is politically and culturally not conducive to, in my opinion, the success of our future as a culture and integrating and having this with the human population,
right?
The mortal population,
right?
Okay, I believe that vampirism can be done as just as effectively in an honorable way that respects humanity,
right?
Okay, and uses the radiated energy of the human.
I agree with
you. Yep. And that is harvested and obtained just because the human body radiates life force. Right. Okay, it leaks life force like heat, moisture.
Right.
Okay, and that can be harnessed and tapped for the vampire. Instead of a vampire being a parasite or a predator, it can be a noble member of the cycle of life, the Krebs cycle.
Right.
Okay. So by being realistic, and the humans sit here, and the mortals or the Muggle population, if you want to call it in Harry Potter terms, which is a fun way to say it. Okay, the sleepers, the people that are not awakened to energy in a vampiric sense, can think of vampirism as an unethical practice.
Correct.
And with the prevalence of emotional vampirism, okay, the idea that a vampire is a parasite, a malicious predator, is something where the vampire is actually more humane than most humans.
Correct.
The vampire is, the vampire does not hunt for sport. The vampire hunts for understanding a connection to life.
Correct.
By being a part of the cycle of energy. And tapping that energy and using it to advance themselves, okay, for healing, for mental clarity, for sorcery, for magic, for an OBE. So basically, first as a vampire, the first phase you need to do is you need to learn how to tap life force.
Okay.
Okay. And harness it and bring that into your body and process it. Because the one human body cannot generate enough life force to build sustain an individual.
Gotcha.
The next step is learning how to do astral projection and taking that extra life force with you to maintain and to be able to have more of a lucid dreaming is an extremely important element of vampirism.
That was my next question.
So anybody can practice vampirism by taking life force from another person. How you do it, it's what you do, it's what you do and how you do it. All right, not in an honorable way. Okay, the Strigoi do not sit here and say we're the predators of humans and that we want to control the world. It's about building yourself up.
Correct.
And becoming a person.
Correct.
And then the next step is astral projection. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And learn to project, taking that life force with you, going to the other side and meeting individuals who have survived death in a conscious way.
Right.
So and keeping their identity intact after death, a very Jedi way of handling things.
Correct.
The next thing, okay, is learning how to control the perception of a dream. Okay, the astral world, if you want to divide the real world, the astral world, the
Correct.
physical world, the dayside world of the five senses, reason, science, logic, and then the veil that connects the two, which I call the ether.
Okay.
Okay, the barrier between the worlds. And then the astral world or the subtle reality. And crossing that barrier is in vampires and witches, and magic is used to help facilitate that.
Right.
Being able to control the links between behind the scenes, like pulling marionette strings,
right.
Okay, is the next phase, which is called vibrational magic.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, so we have lesser magic, greater magic, and vibrational magic, which is also known as sorcery.
Correct.
And then finally is navigating what we call the labyrinth. And that is basically, the labyrinth is the centers of agreement. And that's not something I can really get into because that's a really advanced concept. And sealing all of this training together, okay, brings the person into the final stage, which is the beyond the true initiation. Right. Once you've passed all of these gates and gone through all of these ordeals, as we call them,
right,
it results in the evolution of an individual to have full free will.
Okay. Gotcha. I appreciate that. And I'm glad one thing I'm glad, because before you came on, while I was waiting for you to call, I was talking briefly in the introduction how, in my opinion, as far as the occult, left-hand path, or magic in general, black magic, etc., all these different terms we use, I think vampirism is one of the most misunderstood or prejudged by individuals that may not be knowledge of it or have correct knowledge of it. And I'm glad, and that's why I wanted to focus on the spiritual practices, because it is a very, very highly advanced spiritual system, and I'm glad you're touching on it just on the topic alone of astral travel. So the next thing I want in the book, you talk about belief being a tool. You talk about the vampire magician being a chaos magician, and you talk about belief being. Now, I know in your book you use the term. Well, we've heard it before in other circles. Kepera, Kefa. I don't know how you. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right the way you wrote it in the book, or Zephyr, which is they'll say in some occult circles, coming into the realization of who and what you really are. If you could talk a little bit about that, what does that mean? That state of what some call Kepera or Kefa. What to a working vampire? How do they approach that concept?
Well, when you win, okay, you get a win, you get a success,
right,
in your path. Zephyr is the path. Kefer or Zephyr. We used to spell it Zephyr,
right,
which is the Greek term, and then we changed it to the Egyptian term in the new edition of Black Veil. That is the metamorphosis of the spirit, the metamorphosis from a human-minded persona,
right,
okay, to a vampiric entity.
Okay.
Okay. Where it means to evolve, become, and transform. And it's about the journey. And once you get to the final step of initiation in the Strigobite system, okay, that's where you really begin.
Right.
Okay. Most, there's really no higher initiation. After that basic training, everybody's evolution is different.
Correct.
And you need the foundation skills to be able to go for that. And Zephyr is the word, the power word for evolving from just it's a formalized system of awakening. The initiation structure is, we tell people, if you're going to commit to this, don't sidetrack from the past. Correct. You can take breaks from it, but focus solely on this tradition until you've fully realized your initiation. Okay. And gone through the 7 steps of initiation. Okay.
That makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm.
And then when you're done with that, you can finish it. So belief as a tool is that all of reality is a dream. It's like we live in a matrix.
Right.
And do you want to take the red pill or the blue pill? Okay. If you take the red pill, you're going down the rabbit hole. All right. You go back to the dayside world and you're all right.
Right. That's right.
You go back to sleep.
Right.
So it's not an easy path. Okay, it's not something that is just easy to achieve. It's got to have its challenges. It's got to have its struggles. And life is a struggle.
That's right.
You know, you look at the animal kingdom, and I look out and I see, you know, these rabbits and coyotes and squirrels, and that little patch of land has in the cycle of energy.
That's correct.
And the Strigoi vampire is an extremely energetic spiritual being. Okay, and we encourage, because belief is a tool, once the initiation process is complete, okay, to the satisfaction of the individual.
Right.
Okay, the important thing is to go explore other paradigms, to explore other traditions.
Okay.
To, like, I have gone on my journey, I have looked at every form of vampirism, from the Temple of the Vampire to, you name the group, I've probably read their book and learned from them.
Right.
But it's not like go steal this stuff.
Right.
It's go, here are other traditions and here's how they function, and here's what's important for you to do is take that knowledge that you have and advance it to other systems. If it being a tool is about shaping belief. Chaos magician doesn't mean that, you know, you just let random shit go down.
You got to make order of that. That's correct.
What it means is that you are taking the primordial chaos of and shaping it with your will and fueling life force.
Right.
And belief, you know, a vampire can go into like as the Strigoi vampire, I can go into a Buddhist temple and practice with them and learn from them their practices. Then I can go to a mosque, and then I can go to an atheist church, and then I can go to a temple, and like every day. And I found that entering religious centers of other people allows me to experience that energy,
right,
and open myself to other possibilities and amplify with the knowledge that I have.
Wow. Okay. That's awesome. That is awesome. That's a good point, because some people think because you might practice one spiritual system, and I'm glad you mentioned, like you said, all those various different places. I agree with you. You can absorb and get different levels of consciousness and energy from what you just described. And I'm glad you explained that. Now, I wanted to ask you something before I get into the next section, because we've been recently having conversations about this, and I want your thoughts on this. Obviously, being a teacher to many students that you deal with, people in your circle. You know, we talk about the subjective and the objective, the spiritual realm or the physical realm, to put it in simplistic terms. How important, like, do you instruct your students, or when you're teaching it, just in general, how important is it to be in a sound mind, sound body, number one, and how important it is to stay grounded and be in harmony, physical and the spiritual? Because I've seen over the years, we watch some people who tend to maybe be quite too much into this, and there's a disconnect with everyday reality and dealing with everyday life. Do you incorporate that in your teachings with your students? Do you give them advice on that?
See, the vampire world has many different perspectives. The concept of that's why we define a black veil vampire as not necessarily a Strigoi. A Strigoi is the practitioner of the spiritual side.
Gotcha.
Okay. The black veils are about engaging reality with a sense of style.
Okay.
Okay. From the perspective of a vampire, to open the vampire eye.
Gotcha.
All right. To sit on the throne and peer out into the world and lift the veil to the eyes and see reality in a sense of the perfect, of an evolved perspective.
Gotcha.
Okay. The struggle with that is maintaining that level. We're all, in the end of the day, we're in human bodies with human minds.
That's right.
Okay. And to be a noble, honorable, decent person who doesn't take shit, okay, is and to be realistic is a struggle because you're constantly making decisions about everything you're doing.
Correct.
Okay? And how to handle those situations, okay, should be something that is about personal nobility. When you meet a Strigavai, we want you to meet a person that has a very strong vibration. Okay? Vibrational magic is about raising the vibration and evolving the vibration. And you need to know lesser magic and greater magic to be able to situate that.
Sure.
Okay? What's really important to do is realize that you're in a human body. You have a thing called a mortal coil. Incarnation will last 28,000 days on average. And it's going to start with birth and end with the first death.
Right.
Okay? And what's really, really important to realize is that the world is not a fair place. The world is not a humdrum reality thing. And most vampires live in the United States or Europe. Okay? Most awakenings happen in those two lands. With, I would say, South America being third and Asia fourth.
Okay.
And of course, there's in the Western world is where most of this stuff happens.
Okay.
And it's really, really important to be a realist.
Gotcha.
And not live in a fantasy world. The vampire community, there's lifestyle role players.
Sure.
Okay, who take on titles and hierarchies and everything like that. That is a plague. Okay. That is fun. That's role play. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But that is a different goal than what I'm trying to achieve.
Gotcha.
Okay. When you meet a saber-tooth clan member, they're a very person in the vampire world. Okay. They're usually very magical. They're very family oriented. You know, we rent a castle in Haber, which we just had. Conclave is like an esoteric meeting.
Right.
We just had our conclave with 55 people in the middle of the Austrian Alps for 5 days. We did magic and ceremonies and initiation and sorting into different houses like Harry Potter. There is an element, because we're chaos magicians, we can employ fantastic ideas, but use them for realistic goals.
Wow. Okay.
Okay. What is really important is always keep your feet down on the ground, on the earth. Okay. Unless you're actually projecting, of course, or flying. A sense of humor is really good because you got to laugh at yourself and realize that if you don't laugh, all right, you're not going to gain anything.
That's correct.
Okay. You're going to, you know, Strigavai take their teaching seriously, but we're not expecting every person in the world to agree with us.
Gotcha.
We don't have this, we're the best, because what we have is that there are family members out there that this spiritual and mental and magical technology can be applicable to them, and they can gain from it what they can potential through Zephyr. Zephyr is the journey.
Gotcha.
And that journey is never over. That's why the initiation structure is about the foundations of learning the skill sets that to be able to go out there and interact with the real world. So we're not lifestyle role players. We use lifestyle role play to use the psychodrama, but it's not something that is the majority of the vampire community. No, I wouldn't say the majority, but a good number of them. It's a social thing. Okay, they're role playing because they want to have fun and have some meaning in their lives, and they give themselves these glorious titles and everything like that. That's to make themselves. You know, a title should have a sense of duty.
Right.
It should have a standard of achievement. Okay. And we don't titles in saber-tooth. We use ordeal numbers for Strigavai, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7.
Right.
But we're not sitting here going, I'm the king of the vampires and that I rule everybody. That's not our goal. Our goal is to inspire people to become better human beings and create an environment that is magical and safe and realistic and beautiful. We want that beauty and mystery in the vampire world.
Right.
And if someone wants to call themselves a glorious title, okay, that's great. All right, call yourself that. But in our organization, in our community, it's not important to us.
Gotcha.
And there's such a beautiful diversity of people in the vampire community of all different backgrounds and social levels and sexual orientation.
Right.
You know, if you're gay or transgender or you know, you have a different perspective, as long as it doesn't impede on someone else, it's no problem.
Gotcha. And that's important. That's very important. And
free will.
That's right. And I'm glad you explained that perfect. So I mean, from what I take from what you got, yes, you like you said, your feet need to be on the ground, and I took that as yes. You gotta have a thorough understanding of how to apply all this stuff. Kind of drifting off, because I've seen that not just on the path of Vampyric spirituality. I've seen this in other paths where sometimes the black magician, the occultist, whatever you want to call it, they don't seem to have a good harmony between everyday reality sometimes, some people, and the spiritual and the physical world. But I think you explained it. That kind of summed it up. The next topic, I know when you were here a few months back, I know it was kind of, you were pressed for time. We didn't really get into it. Probably the most controversial topic, more so for those that may not understand vampirism. I'm not talking about for maybe the individual that's educated to somewhat or the actual practitioner. And I would love for you to explain this crystal clear, the aspect of blood on the vampiric path, how it's used, because unfortunately to some, that's all vampires do, that they stand around and they got that Hollywood interpretation of it. So can you clear up some of the myths, and from a spiritual perspective, how that is incorporated on this path?
Sure. Sanguine vampirism or sanguinarian vampirism is the concept that an individual, and there's many different versions of this. Okay. Now, I want to make something clear. In my previous book, I went hard on sanguine vampirism. I am no longer as hard on that because so far, no one has gotten AIDS or hepatitis or any disease that I know of from drinking blood.
Right.
Okay. And I have friends who are sanguine vampires.
Right.
And the Strigoi path in the Sabertooth Clan and the Endless Night as a business, Endless Night can't have drinking of blood on the property.
Right.
Okay, it's an insurance hazard.
Right.
Okay. The Sabertooth Clan does not endorse or condone blood drinking as a practice of vampirism because it's a liability, and Sabertooth Clan, it's not a priority. And condemn someone to death for it. Okay. And then finally with Strigoi, we're about okay, that's a physical thing. Now, blood is for many vampires, okay, a symbol of life force. For many, because blood is the life.
Correct.
And that's, we know that's in Leviticus.
Correct.
Now, the majority of the vampire community, sanguine vampires are relatively rare. And what I also believe that if you are going to connect with someone, there's a difference between feeding and consuming energy and exchanging energy. Okay. If you're going to connect with your partner and you the most intimate thing possible, you exchange blood. Blood brothers. When I was a kid, I cut my hand, which I closed my eyes and I poked my finger. And my best friend and I, when we were 10, we did the Tonto and Lone Ranger energy exchange.
Yeah.
Okay. If you want to, and a lot of pagan hand fasting, blood is exchanged between couples to bond them together as family. Okay. So there's the symbolic thing, and then there's the metaphysical.
Gotcha.
Okay. Now, what I will say, as long as it's safe, sane, and consensual, everyone is tested, and everybody is fully consensual and an adult. Okay, what they do in their bedrooms is their damn business.
That's correct.
Okay. If someone wants to identify as a sanguine vampire, I am happy to see them accepted by the world. Okay, if they do it under safe, sane, and consensual terms, and they know what they're doing. Vampirism is relatively rare. I believe it's one type of beating. Okay, right. You have a couple disadvantages, like you get that person that you're dependent on that person. Okay, and for strict practices, that's not enough energy to sustain the practice of Strigavai off one human. You need thousands of excess energy of people to be able to do what we do. Don't feed from the core of someone or deep feed from someone without consent. There's a noble and honorable process that the Strigavai practice that is in league with human law and respectful to human spirituality and religion.
Right.
And it's like the legends of Native Americans. Okay. The legends of Native Americans saying a prayer before they take the life of an animal.
Right.
There's no murder. There's no death. There's no harm. There's no disadvantage to a Strigavai's form of feeding. Okay. Gotcha. It's actually healthy for the human, okay, to have that done to them.
Right.
Because it's already external. It's already radiated off the body.
Right.
Okay. So that energy is going to evaporate into the Gaia or the ether or whatever. The vampire is just tapping it and harnessing it.
Gotcha.
Now, to get core energy from the core of someone requires consent. And that can be done through BDSM, drinking blood, a massage, Reiki-like practices, energy work.
Sure.
There's a whole variety of ways of doing a deep feed. And I don't encourage fledgling or new neophyte vampires to do deep feeding, because you got to be able to learn how to disconnect the links that come along with that.
That's correct. I'm glad you said that. If somebody were to ask you a lot of the stuff we've been talking about up until this point, in your practices, your if you want to, traditions, from a historical perspective, where do you trace the lineage and history of your practices? What would you, if somebody asked you that, like what's the foundation of the history of your spiritual path? Where would you push that person, or what direction to get information?
Well, Strigavai is from a Romanian myth that one of my mentors introduced me to. Okay. I've always identified with the word Strigavai.
Okay.
Okay. My interpretation is my interpretation, and that's what I share. And I share the results and the direction. I share what I've learned. I don't believe my intent or my goal is to dictate to people what's right and wrong. Okay. In regards to their path, I can only advise people and give them the gift of my interpretation and see how they take it on. Okay. Because each person is an individual. Right. So if you look back, there's the mythology, and none of us were there for that experience.
Gotcha.
Okay. And our ancestor spirits who have survived the second death and become ascended vampires, okay, can tell us whatever they want to tell us. So in reality, it goes, vampirism in its basic core is the ability to take life force from someone else and give it to and take it and harvest it for your own benefit.
Right.
Okay. And that is vampirism in its basic sense. It's a predatory act. Okay. Some vampires, most psychic vampires that are unawake, are actually manifest emotional states, drain people of energy emotionally. Okay. And the psychic vampire community has evolved a very ethical system that's very compatible and parallel and even communicatable with the Strigavai, and other practitioners of vampirism. Right. I believe that every individual, okay, is capable of achieving vampiric states if they have the potential and the will and the desire and the focus and the dedication to evolve.
Correct.
Just like everybody, the theory that everyone's psychic.
Correct. Makes complete sense. Yep. Definitely makes complete sense. The next section here, which I think is extremely important, kind of elaborate. And I think this applies not just to vampirism, in my opinion. I think magic in general. Talk a little bit about intent and sincerity. And I think that sometimes, in my opinion, to some might sound basic. You know, we all have a common understanding, so we think of what that means. But how important is that in your approach to working magic in general, vampirism, etc.? If you could elaborate a little bit on that.
Well, I think that intent and sincerity, are intent is the ability to use your will, to use your focus and your desire to do something. I intend to do something. That doesn't mean you could have the best intentions in the world to climb that mountain.
That's right.
You're not there.
That's correct.
Okay. You need willpower, you need success, you need luck, you need training, you need ability, you need all of these things to be able to achieve something.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
And realize that you're not going to achieve everything. I'm about to get into a car. I'm going to do a cleansing on a warehouse.
Okay.
So bear with me. My ride has arrived a little early.
No problem.
So I will still continue this interview.
Okay.
Willpower requires effort and ego and desire, channeled in a healthy and strong way.
Gotcha. And that's important. Very important.
Yeah.
All right. So what I'll do is I'm kind of try to get through the rest of these so we can get you a few questions before you get to where you got to go and do what you got to do. We want to make sure. Just let me know when you're really running low on time. This way we can make sure we at least get a couple questions over to you that people have typed in. The next two, I'm going to kind of combine them. If you can explain invocation and evocation, what they are and the difference between. So I'll combine those two. If you can just elaborate on invocation and evocation, what are they and what's the difference between the two? Because some people mix them up.
Everyone say hello to Patty. I'm on the phone with this interview.
Hello, Patty.
Patty Negri, I met on the set of Ghost Adventures.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Hello, Patty. Hello, everyone. So, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, I'm going to combine these two at a time. If you can elaborate on invocation and evocation, what they are, the difference between the two, because some people mix them up, in my opinion. I don't think they fully understand it.
Well, my interpretation is pretty simple. Invocation is internal, and evocation is external.
Okay.
So, invocation, and that's pretty much it.
Okay.
It's a manifestation of energy in one of those different formats.
Okay. Cool. And then something I think is very important you talk about, if you could just briefly, the importance of meditation to a practicing vampire. How important is meditation on this path?
Meditation, in my opinion, is everything.
Gotcha.
And we have to remember that there's different types of meditation. Okay? Right. And different types of meditation, it depends on the individual. It depends on the goals. It depends on the agenda of what you're trying to do. So meditation could be riding a motorcycle, playing music. Meditation is designed to create an alternative state of consciousness.
Gotcha.
And achieve a gnosis, a knowing of spirituality, and awareness of it. So there's Vedic meditation, there's active meditation, passive meditation. An active meditation, in the String of Eye perspective, is something that you're doing like playing drums or music or riding a motorcycle, doing something physical to focus your mental energy.
Right.
Okay. Passive meditation, we would traditionally think of as a meditation. You sit back, You close your eyes, you have music, a
Right.
mantra, and mental meditation, okay, which is practiced twice a day at 20 minutes a day, scientifically meditation in history, okay, and I'm finding this to be something that's extremely great for stress and anxiety and inspired creativity. And what it does is this form of meditation is something I'm exploring myself. I'm not including it in Sugarby or Vampyric practices, but I'll recommend it.
I got you.
Okay, it's not an official thing. This is something I'm doing myself. So basically, if you look at the human consciousness as a ocean, okay, and at the top of the ocean is this wave of waves, and the weather changes, and one day you have a hurricane, bad day. Okay, one day it's a beautiful blue sky, and you're sailing along, and there's fishes swimming next to you, and the dolphins out. That's a good day.
Right.
Okay, and the mind is represented by the surface, the conscious mind. What Vedic or transcendental meditation does is let you go below the waves for 20 minutes and just rest and reboot and rejuvenate.
Correct.
And be reborn and reset your nervous system. And the results are cumulative. Okay, you do it when you first wake up, and then you do it when you go to sleep.
Correct.
Okay, and when you go to sleep, you do it. It's actually 4 states of consciousness. This is the 4th. The first state is the awakened mind. The second is the dreaming mind.
Okay.
Okay, and then there's the meditative mind. Okay. So I'm trying to remember all this stuff because I'm new to this. Okay, but from what I've seen, if you look at the people that are practicing TM, transcendental meditation, are David Lynch has a foundation called the David Lynch that's teaching this in schools and prisons.
Okay.
Then there's Russell Brand, who's used transcendental meditation to become sober, okay, and calm his life. And he's a very troubled soul, but this has managed to bring him to a state of relaxation and agreement with the world.
Right.
Seinfeld practices it.
Okay.
Ellen DeGeneres, and it's a very simple practice. And you have to go to a coach and a teacher to it. You look on tm.org, and I'm really excited to explore this because being in my position as the founding father of the vampire world,
right,
okay, is really can be a pain in the butt.
Right.
And it brings stress into my personal life. It brings stress and fatigue and lack of focus. So some of the benefits of TM, okay, that have been scientifically validated for over 50 years are increase in creativity, increase in brainwave and collaboration between the hemispheres of the brain.
Right.
Okay, more skill and sympathy and relationships. Okay, interpersonal skills. It also helps lower blood pressure, even the Vedic and transcendental meditation to do this.
Right.
It can actually it can slow your aging process and reduce stress up to 50%.
Okay.
If you practice it twice a day. And I've explored many forms of meditation. And like, for example, Seinfeld. Oh, Howard Stern practices TM.
Right.
Okay.
I've heard that before.
So, correct. And, what's great is that they don't go proselytize. Say the best way for people to believe that in the TM practice, you grow and evolve and become a different person for people that are around you that know about it.
Okay.
And let them ask you. So, unlike other systems of initiation or things, TM is just this, 20 minutes twice a day.
Right.
It changes you and revigorates you and revitalizes you and helps you focus. And I'm really excited. My course on Monday.
Cool.
And it's 4 sessions with a TM coach, and that's it.
Mm. Okay.
There's no higher degrees. There's no more teachings. It's this. It lets you be yourself.
Nice.
And just be for 2 times a day.
Gotcha.
For 20 minutes.
Okay. I appreciate that. Necromancy, the concept of it and how the vampire applies that on his spiritual path.
Necromancy.
Yes.
Well, necromancy is communicating with the dead. So, have you ever used the Ouija board?
Oh, yeah.
That's necromancy.
Gotcha.
Okay. And communication with the dead or divination with the dead is necromancy. So, necromancers in Dungeons and Dragons and fantasy and high fantasy are considered very evil beings. Okay, because they're resurrecting zombies and controlling vampires and binding spirits and stuff like that. But anybody who interacts with the beyond is a necromancer.
Right. Makes sense. Complete sense. The next topic, and I know this is important, in my opinion, to any practicing magician on any occult or left-hand path, the importance of a ritual chamber. Do you give, I know you talk a little bit about it in the book, do you give suggestions as far as necessities? Yeah.
A ritual chamber is a place that sacred space can be established very effectively.
Right.
It can either be cumulative, like if you have a temple, for example, a church is a sacred space. Patty Negri's car can be a sacred space. Okay. A sacred space can be erected temporarily, and a real temple is a sacred space.
Right.
And what this is an environment where the veil can be crossed. The ether can be, the astral can be, the physical world and the spiritual world come together. Okay. And there's many factors on that. And ritual is designed to be able to put you in an alternative state of consciousness, channel conceptual energy, channel emotional energy, or channel energy in general. And a sacred space is a powerful place where that manifests.
Correct.
So a temple or a chamber or a ritual chamber is designed to be an environment where that can be facilitated more effectively.
Okay. Completely makes sense. And I think it's key. I'm going to skip a couple of these elements because I think they could be shows itself. I don't want to get too much into the sex magic right now because I think that's more detailed. I don't want to rush that. What I do, there's 2 more I want to ask you, then I'll try to take a few questions for you. You talk about shape-shifting in the book, and obviously we're talking not on the corporal level, but obviously more on the astral level. Can you talk a little bit about shape-shifting and the practice of that to the living vampire?
Well, shape-shifting is shifting your subtle body into that of an animal or a mist, or the vampire. When you astral project, that's where a lot of the powers come in.
Right.
That's why you go through training. Okay. And astral projection, you can shape shift your subtle body into any animal you want. You can mold it and shape it and pattern it after a wolf or a bat or a cat or a feline. And then some people like I know people that have the spirit of a cat. The frequency of their being and their soul is that of feline. Right. Okay. Other people are wolves. And some people, I've met foxes. And that's where a lot of these, other kin manifestations, like, I don't really have a lot of judgment on the other kin community because I'm not an expert on it. But what I can say is that, having a feline spirit or having a wolf spirit and relating to that animal on a higher vibration than other people, okay, might lend to you actually molding your subtle body when you're actually projecting or dream walking into that animal.
Right.
Okay. Like canthropy is the shape shifting of human to wolf. Okay. And then back again. All right. And like necromancy is a bad name, okay? But shape-shifting is something that is a discipline. And it's something that, you know, you can do in many different formats.
Gotcha. Okay. And the last thing I want to ask you, and then I'll take a few questions for you before you go. Servitors, do you use these frequently? Is this a frequent practice you use, or how do you? Yes. Talk a little bit about servitors.
Servitors are thought forms, and there's 5 forms of thought forms in the Strigavai paradigm. Okay. The first is a sigil, which is a symbol with intent. Okay.
Right.
The second level is a servitor, which is kind of like a Roomba. Okay. You program it to do something, protect your house, make sure that a ward is set up. You know what a Roomba is? The vacuum that goes around your floor?
Sure.
Okay. That would be an example of a physical type of servitor. Okay. They're a minor elemental, and you can create them through will or sacrificing of hair or blood or anything like that. The third level is a tufla, which is like a viral video on YouTube, okay, or a saying that goes around, like, you know, a song that everybody sings or something like that.
Right.
The fourth level is an egregore, which is the spirit of a group or of a group mind. And the fifth is a God form.
Gotcha.
So to put it in those contexts, a servitor is a thought form. It's a thought form that is executing, designed to move, to service a minor, simple purpose.
Gotcha.
And I use them all the time.
Okay. Very, very important. All right. So I'm going to go through the chat, take a couple questions for you, Father Sebastian, before we let you go.
Sure.
Because I know you heading to your destination. I just want to make sure we at least get some interaction with some of the viewers and the listeners. All right. The first question is from Lady Owl. Exactly what does it mean by Draco blood or negative A blood types linked to metaphysics? Any thoughts on that?
Lady Owl, I am not an expert on blood or blood types. I know that I'm O positive and I'm a good donor.
Me too. I'm O positive too. Okay.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I'm O positive too. All right. Let me get to the next question. Hold on. I'm scrolling down. I'm just going to kind of skip comments and stuff amongst people. I'm not going to get into all. There's some people talking amongst each other. Okay. This question is from. Oh, I just lost it. It was from Angel. Hold on. Let me pull it back up. Hold on. All right. This question is from Angel Figueroa. He asks, in your current practice of vampire magic, has this practice enabled you to sort of meld, connect, and assimilate other practices? I did a little bit on that earlier, but if you can, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go listen to the earlier parts of the interview, and that will probably answer your question more effectively than me repeating myself.
Right. Yeah, you did touch on that, how you do bring that in. All right. This is from Mitchell Ford. He says, question, wonderful stuff. He's enjoying the show. Is there a symbolism? And this is actually a good point, because this is another basic mythological concept I think some people get confused with. Is there a certain symbolism behind the whole and more of the, I guess, entertainment traditional aspect of the vampire the vampire being affected by sunlight? Is there any symbolism incorporated in that from a spiritual perspective? Is the question.
Most people that I know that practice vampirism are highly energetic beings,
right?
And the sun projects a the human consciousness when it's sleeping is really the realm of the vampire or the Strigavai.
Right.
Okay. And a lot of the mythology comes from, the idea that an advanced vampire is more active at night. And it's simply because they're actually projecting and they're interacting over the world in a way where things are quiet.
Right.
There's also sunlight kind of overwhelms energy.
Right.
And the ability to manifest the lower the veil is usually done in most traditions at night.
Right.
Okay. So interacting with the astral world is easier without sunlight, because sunlight is this, like, the radiation of sunlight overwhelms the ability to lower the veil.
Gotcha.
And therefore, like I said, most vampires that are practicing spiritual vampires or have the potential for it, they naturally gravitate to being night owls. Like, I go to bed around 2 or 3 in the morning and wake up at 6.
Right.
Okay, so I only need 3 hours of sleep because I meditate.
Right.
Okay, and I take a nap in the afternoon.
Right.
Traditionally, humans go to bed at sundown, they wake up in the middle of the night, and that's when they're most active, and then they go back to sleep and wake up at sunrise.
That's correct. Makes sense.
So I've heard stories of vampiric people getting migraine headaches. Like, I just don't go out in the sun a lot, in direct sunlight, okay, but it gives me headaches, but it doesn't, like, I don't catch a fire and shit, you know?
Exactly. Gotcha. All right. This question is from Jonathan Hernandez. He asks if somebody is brand new on the path, they're interested in vampirism, they're reading, they're studying it, what would you, as maybe giving instruction to somebody brand spanking new, where would you start and what resources would you recommend to them?
I would say read Black Veils.
Mm-hmm.
Read the Vampire FAQ that I wrote. Okay. Read, and then, you know, look into other books. Right. I have a great suggested book reading list in the back of Black Veils. Okay. Black Veils is going to be available in 4 languages: English, French, German, and Spanish. Okay. I'm really looking forward to releasing the Spanish edition in Argentina next year.
Okay.
And, you know, what I find really cool about vampirism, at least from the Black Veils and Sugar Eye perspective, is that Black Veils is designed to let you make your own interpretation of what veils are important to you.
Right.
Okay, and each Black Veil is a conversation starter, not a law or dictatorial thing. The Black Veils have gone through a lot of different evolutions. I have written over 700 Black Veils, and the book that's available on Amazon, the Vampire Lexicon, okay, is about 150 of them. Okay.
Okay.
And that's the official updated technology. That's the official doctrine. I wouldn't say doctrine. That's the official voice of what I endorse. And you can disagree with one veil and benefit from another.
Sure.
There's no obligation to you know, be tied. Like, the veils are not laws; they're ideas and inspiration and tools.
Correct. No, it makes sense. And you said in the beginning of the show, you know, you don't expect everybody, you know, to agree with everything, and that's just common sense. I mean, like you say, you take what you could gravitate towards and learn from, and if something doesn't resonate with you, you just, you know, you don't utilize it. I mentioned that earlier, and I'm glad you said that.
Yeah,
again.
Or you might use it later.
Sure.
Okay, or it might be a use for you for a period of time. You know, you only have 28,000 days on this earth on average. That's the average 78-year human lifespan. Right. Okay, and that's the longest time we've had to practice vampirism and achieve effort or ascension than any other time in history for the average person.
Gotcha.
Okay, and I'll tell you, you know, I hear people bitching and complaining about this world. We're living it pretty good compared to 20 years ago. All right, when, you know, or like 100 years ago when they didn't even have like painkillers to get a tooth extracted. Okay, you drank a bunch of rum or whiskey. I'm gonna do that. I like technology. I like my creature comforts. I like being able to call my mom when I feel like it.
That's right.
You know, I love getting on and doing my banking in my boxers, sitting at my dining room table.
There you go.
Okay, you know, I love being able to get on an airplane and fly to France in less than a day.
Right.
You know,
sure.
Today's a great, you know, we're at the greatest piece of human history. And it's just going to get even tighter as technology advances.
I agree. All right, I'm just going to give you 2 more and then we'll wrap. I do appreciate you spending some time with us. I got one here from T. Carter. Could you explain active meditation? And she asks, how could I dance and use active meditation, if that makes sense?
Just dance.
There you go. Makes sense.
Get on a motorcycle and enjoy the riding through the mountains or by the coast. Be safe, of course. Okay, go into your local sports, MMA sports training center and get into the ring and box away. Okay, run, drive a race car on a racetrack. Okay, just be in that zone. Okay, focused and dedicated to going.
Correct. And then the last one, and I think you actually answered this question in your introduction to vampire magic, and I'm going to say no to this, but maybe I want to make sure I'm understanding it right. Kiona asked,
I'll be happy to take it.
yeah, do vampires believe in worshiping or no? And I'm going to say no, but I could be wrong.
Well, it depends on the interpretation of worship.
Exactly. Yes.
Do vampires, worshiping is the most important thing in the world to you. Okay? If you worship a blade of grass or a 4-leaf clover and you put it more important in your life, okay, worship is also respect and offering of energy.
Correct.
Okay? And if you want to give that energy to something and you feel that it's worthy, then that's great. But worship, I bow before no man or no God. Okay. There's times where worshiping a God is not, I've dated Christians that are amazing. Okay. And they're true to their faith. I've dated Muslims that are amazing.
Right.
Okay. And when you date, you get intimately engraced in that person's energy. And I think it's really, really important to be aware that there's nothing wrong with worship. And left-hand path, worshiping yourself, is just redirecting your energy into yourself.
Correct.
And sometimes you might worship, when someone kisses my ass and goes, Father Sebastian, you're the greatest, you're amazing, I love you, you're wonderful, amazing, and stuff like that, I'm like, channel your energy into you and evolve yourself.
Correct.
Okay, I can give you what I know. I'm just a man who has a passion for evolution and a passion for the vampire mythology and spirituality. Okay, I'm not a god. Okay, I'm trying to achieve that, but I'm not there yet. And I think it's important to look at worship as a directing energy, sacrifice, and offering.
Gotcha. Makes complete sense.
I'm happy to take some more questions. We're in the car.
Okay. So let me ask you this, and I can't remember if it was in Vampire Magic or the Vampire Sagnomicon. You talked about, I believe it's in one of the introductions, you talked about one of the key elements to understand as a practicing vampire, kind of in tune with what you were saying, was the vampire is always the center of everything, and everything evolves around them. And when they remove themselves from that center, you kind of termed it where they now can become susceptible. And again, I may not be quoting it exact same way. They can become susceptible to external belief systems or forces. I took that as, when I read that initially, kind of more like from a left-hand path perspective, where self-deification, self-mastery. Your thoughts on that? And I can't remember which book it was in. I know it was in one of the introductions.
Those books are. I've read those books so long. I wrote those books over a decade ago.
Right.
And most of the information is valid. I would probably put it in different terminology.
Right.
Than I do now, or simplify it because the book was pretty wordy.
Right.
The vampire god, okay, an apotheosis, self-deification.
Correct.
Okay, or rising to divinity is about putting yourself first. Okay, I've, if you get hit by a car and you're dead, okay, and you push someone out of the way, you're not going to be able to help other people.
Gotcha.
Right? If you don't love yourself first, you're not going to be able to share love with other people.
Gotcha.
Okay, if you're not happy, you're going to make other people miserable around you. All right. If you don't put yourself first, you're kind of, when you die, you're in ascension, you're fucked. Okay? And it's about not fucking yourself.
That's correct.
And putting yourself first is about making yourself the priority. And it doesn't mean you're not generous. It doesn't mean you're not loving and giving. It doesn't mean you're not kind to other people.
Sure.
In fact, and it doesn't mean that you are selfish in a negative way.
Correct.
Okay? It means that it's about survival of the self, preservation of the self.
Correct. That makes
And
complete.
that's kind of the goal of Strigavai, to evolve and become immortal.
Makes complete sense. All right, I think you answered this question, but I'm going to throw it at you. I'm not sure if Kiona came in later, and I think you kind of addressed this, but if you could reiterate, is drinking blood a requirement? I think you already kind of answered that, but maybe you want to touch on it a little bit more. Thank you.
Most vampires don't drink blood, and the ones that do very rarely drink it, from my experience. Okay? Drinking blood is not a requirement to practice vampirism or live a vampiric lifestyle at all. I can't give a real statistic, but it's the vast majority, and it's even taboo amongst a lot of the vampire covenants. But I don't think there's anything wrong with it as long as it's safe, standing consensual, and all parties are doing it safely in the right environment. Like, we can't have blood drinking at endless night events,
Right.
okay, because it's insurance hazard. But
Correct.
we can have blood performances if that person's insured, okay?
Right.
We can have blood, body modification, primal or rituals, as long as it's done according to the Board of Health and it's done legally. But drinking blood is a very taboo subject with the Muggle world.
Right.
So it's not that I talk down about blood drinking. I'm just a realist about it.
No,
About the liabilities and the amount of energy you get from it.
No, I agree. I'm glad you're addressing it because, I see this as probably one of the most misunderstood aspects of this spiritual path because, and some indoctrination from media and Hollywood and movies, because they don't understand the spiritual aspect of it. And I know you've touched on it detailed earlier. I would also recommend that listener to go back and listen to the early portion of the show when it uploads, because I think you went in depth on it and you explained. Something else I want to get to, since we got a little more time, chapter 10 in the Vampire Magic book. I want to talk a little bit about sigils and veves real quick. How do you utilize them? Do you utilize them? Obviously, they're energies and symbols that we connect with because it opens up states of consciousness. Do you use them at all as to astral travel, as far as open up portholes, dimensions, or how do you use them on your path? Sigils or veves?
You're talking about veves?
Yeah.
Or veves?
Yep.
Yeah, they can be used for many things. They're just sigils. I mean, you can use them for focusing energy. You can use them for summoning spirits. You can use them for symbolism. You can use them for a whole bunch of things. Veves are. I mean, I've heard two different, like tomato. They're very powerful, and they come directly from the voodoo paradigm.
Correct.
And Strigavai is very influenced and uses traditions from all sorts of different paths. It's a very eclectic path. And that's why we use chaos magic as the foundation.
Right. Okay. Something I think is very important. I talk a lot about it on the show. You talk about it in chapter 8 of this book. You talk about vampiric healing. You use a term in one of the sections, etheric wounds. How important is shadow work, as some call it? Doing, understanding yourself, obviously, number one. But how does a practicing vampire go about addressing their shadow self, understanding, their strengths, but more so their weaknesses? And what do you instruct somebody that's on this path of how to work with that when they have acknowledged their weaknesses, their faults, what things about themselves they need to work on, correct, to keep evolving on the spiritual path? How do you apply that on the path? I know you call it vampiric healing. which is very similar, and etheric wounds, trauma, and all those things. How do you apply that or teach students of, how to deal with that? Because we all have that trauma.
First of all, I think that vampiric healing is very much like Reiki. Okay, removing stagnant blocks, and it's a whole subject, just like healing.
Correct.
Okay, making the subtle body feel better. Okay, the shadow self, okay, is the negative internal self, the dark self. And
right.
You got to face it.
Correct.
Okay, and it's hard, and it's painful, and it's stressful, and it's scary. Okay. But if you don't face it, you'll never deal with it, and it will just amplify and fester.
That's correct.
Okay. So embrace the dark side. Like, I know all these witches that are like, oh, we're light workers, hippy-dippy shit. And then, like, ones that are really powerful, the ones that can deal with the shadow and also deal with the darkness.
Okay.
Because they're in balance. Right.
Is that something, though, you instruct? Is that part of the initiation process with a?
I'm going to be honest with you. I am currently not teaching.
Gotcha.
Okay. I'm focusing on myself. I'm focusing on my own Zephyr. I'm focusing on my life. I put the Order of Strigoi on hold in 2016. Okay. If people want to benefit from the books themselves, that's great.
Right.
If I take a student and I seriously have to consider it because it's a big commitment.
Right. Sure. Makes complete sense.
So, I mean, I'll share my knowledge,
right.
But I'm not formally taking any students right now.
No, sure, understood. But in the past, or even in your process, even when you came on the path in your beginnings, was that part of the initiation process? Did they require you to deal with that shadow self, or was it a core?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Looking in the mirror is a very, very difficult thing for a lot of people.
That's right.
Okay, and also dealing with reality. I've been through some of the most difficult things some of the most difficult things in my life. I'm not going to say that I've had a worse life or a better life, or because everybody's different and everybody has different experiences and different needs and different requirements. Like, I have really great health, all right, and I have friends with very poor health, and I don't fully understand their situation, but that poor health is a result of their mental state and their physical state, and I try to be as supportive as possible, but you really got to learn how to take care of yourself. Correct. And part of that is facing your shadow.
Correct. Okay. Here's a question from one of the listeners, T. Carter. Maybe you can explain this. How do I start to practice psychometric vampirism? If I'm not even sure what that is, to be honest with you.
That is a very big discussion that I don't think I have time to. I'm about to reach my destination.
No problem.
Paddy Negri and I are going to cleanse a warehouse, huge warehouse of negative energy.
Okay, no problem. If you could, before you go again, just give your contact information quickly and your website, so people can reach out to you if they see fit.
You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Father Sebastian.
Okay.
And my Facebook page is, I have a Facebook profile that's public. So you can reach me through Instagram, Facebook. I'm Father Seb on Twitter, but I'm mostly on Instagram. That's my most prevalent place. And then you can find all of my events at Endless Night VB, or Endless Night Vampire Ball, or endlessnight.com.
Okay. All right, Father Sebastian, I appreciate it. I appreciate you taking out some of your personal time to spend with us. I'll check back with you.
My pleasure.
I'll check back with you a few months down the road, your schedule permitting. Hopefully we get you back here in the future down the road. I definitely appreciate it, and thank you for taking the time out and answering some of our questions.
Do you mind if I say something more?
No, sure. Go ahead.
I really, really like I'm really happy with your audience's questions and your questions. You've done a really great interview.
Thank you.
Being in the dayside world as much as I am, I really appreciate your vast knowledge and understanding of the books that I've put together. It really makes me feel that I'm doing my job.
Definitely.
And all the effort that I put into those books has been well worth it.
Definitely.
And thank you for that. And
No.
I thank your audience as well.
I appreciate it.
They've asked really good questions, and I look forward to coming back on your show just for the pure pleasure of having good interactions.
I appreciate it, Father Sebastian. Thank you very much, and we'll be in contact. I appreciate it.
I hope to see you at the Florida Vampire Ball in March of 2020.
Definitely. I'm there.
All right, buddy.
All right. Have a good night.
Day, everyone.
Thanks.
And to your audience, rock and roll and take care.
Appreciate it. Thank you. All right, people. So, I know he's out and about. He's on the go a lot. So I'm glad we were able to get him here for about an hour and a half. That's just kind of something we got to deal with when he's here. So I was trying to squeeze in as much as I could. But we'll get him back. There's some topics that, like Tanisha's topic, psychometric vampirism and sex magic, and some more things I kind of wanted to get into, but I don't want to open up, topics and we can't fully expound on them. So you heard he's got which I didn't even know that, he's got a big vampiric ball here in Florida next year. I'll definitely be at that. That's something I could definitely get to. But you got his website, you got his information. But what I wanted to kind of finish up with before we go, I'm not sure what's going on with this damn internet. The bugged out thing is, I know people are contacting me telling me that the feed is bad. It's definitely because in the process, again, as it's been going on, I've been checking my internet connection is strong. I got all the lights on my modem. I'm showing a strong connection on my end. So I don't know what the fuck is going on. I know every time we get him on, some bugged out shit happens. So I don't know if it's got something to do with that. Powers that be. Not trying to sound spooky because I don't want to go to spooky Space Cadetville. And I don't want people, I don't want to get into the conspiracy theories. It could just be maybe something with the YouTube feed. I don't know. But everything is good on this end, so I don't know what to tell. I'm getting side texts. I'm getting emails. And again, I don't know what to tell people, unfortunately. Everything is good on this end. But what I wanted to kind of finish with and wrap it up in the next few minutes, I'm not going to stay on for much longer, just so I can get to some personal stuff I want to do. I kind of wanted to elaborate and touch on this and focus on the spiritual elements because I think it's a very misunderstood path. Those that might be seasoned or experienced left-hand path practitioners are familiar with vampirism to some extent. I think those that aren't is where the ignorance comes in, or the lack of understanding due to their personal interpretation, and that's fine. Even as Father Sebastian said, he doesn't expect everybody to accept everything that he teaches, just like I say that on the show. I don't expect all of my shows and my topics. That'd be nonsense to think that every individual is going to agree with it. But sometimes we can let our personal interpretations dictate an incorrect understanding of a path like this. And I've said from day one, I haven't done a ton of shows on it. I have done shows over the years, scattered here and there on the topic. I have said from day one, it's not a path for everybody. It's not a sit. And I say that because when you really understand the spiritual aspect of it, a lot of the topics we were talking about tonight and how they're applied, it's a very intense path. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of energy, giving and receiving and absorption of those energies. So I find people that either don't understand it or they're not disciplined enough to master it. Now, again, you're entitled to draw your own conclusion, your opinions. That's fine. But make sure, we're clear on understanding this path, whether you practice it or not. If you want to call in, if anybody wants to call in before we wrap it up, I'll take a few calls. I couldn't do that while I had him on the phone line because he had to come in on the phone, so I can't take other calls. I'll just take a few calls. I put the phone number in. I'm not gonna stay on for too long. Only again due to the fact I got some personal stuff I got to get to. But I just wanted to dispel those, clarify some of the misconceptions of it. So if it's not for you, it's just not for you. That's it. That's just like not just this path. If it's not, every spiritual path on the left-hand path is not going to be for everybody. Not everybody utilizes the Necronomicon. Not everybody utilizes the Goetia. Not everybody utilizes Vampirism. It's up to you. I think where sometimes we get lost in transition, the path to self-mastery is just that. The key word in that sentence is self-mastery. You, the practitioner, make the decisions what's for you and what's not. It's that simple. I know I've always operated from that from day one. There's things I might do a lot of research, like and read and study up on a lot of things, but that don't necessarily mean I incorporate all of them. I do know my passion, obviously, is the Klepothic tree. Egyptian Heka is a strong passion of mine. Egyptian black magic, Heka, you know, from a darker aspect, that's probably my love and my passion. All right. See what we got, caller. Caller, what's your name and where you calling from?
Hey, brother Beniti, it's Be Like Water, Orlando. How you doing?
Hey, what's going on? Be Like What? How you doing, brother?
Hey, doing pretty good, man. Just enjoying this rain out here in Orlando.
You guys...
I want to holler at you, brother, about I know the topic tonight was in particular about Vampyr, but there's been something on my mind.
Sure.
We're always talking about balancing like the energies and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And so in particular how you others have spoken about balancing masculine and feminine energies.
Right.
And so what I notice, to get to my question, what I notice nowadays is a lot of men are very I guess you would say emasculated, or like basically like a lot of bitch boys. There's a lot, I don't know if it has to do with like third world third wave feminism or whatnot, but it seems like nowadays there's not that many alpha, so to speak. You know?
I agree.
So I'm wondering how, you know, because I'm trying to get on my alpha shit.
Right.
Stay on that and focus.
Mm-hmm.
But how do we balance both of those? I guess you would say without becoming like a bitch boy or whatever.
No, it's a great question, and I want to say this, and again, not to offend anybody listening. I think there's an agenda, and I'm not talking just from your sexualization, because I think sometimes what you're saying can get confused with sexual orientation, and it has nothing to do with that, contrary to belief. But I do believe there's an agenda to emasculate the male, especially black or other ethnicities more so. I mean, look in the culture. All we got to do is look in the music, the media. I mean, I always one of the things to your question I always bring up, I mean, look at the hip hop culture, for an example. Well, I mean, I don't even want to call it that nowadays. That might be pushing it.
Right.
Or what they call rap culture. Just look at how that's evolved and changed, where it went from, I mean, it was the saggy, the baggy, the Timbs. It was the very rugged, rough, alpha warrior type male that was presented in the hip hop industry. Now it's changed to, you got dudes wearing makeup and tight pants and shit. There's some rappers, and I'm not up on the latest shit. I believe there's 2 rappers that were known for wearing dresses, if I'm not mistaken. That literally wore. So I think where the confusion, I think what indoctrinates us and kind of stamps that in certain. I'm more or less talking about people not such as yourself, and I would consider people who are conscious or woke. I think how it affects the masses, there's an indoctrination, and I think there is a target and there is an agenda. And I think part of the problem in identifying what's causing it, and then we'll talk about how do you go about fixing it. I think what's causing it is a lot of these societies, systems of indoctrination, and it starts with the culture. It starts. You got a lot of background noise. You got your window open or something? I'm not sure. Okay, it's gone. I heard like a sound like wind or something.
Yeah, my fault. It's cars driving by.
No problem.
A different area.
I got you. So I think culture, society has a lot to do with that. All we got to do, and I just use simply briefly, if we look at the music, it's hard really to identify. And I think when you flip the switch, well, how do we fix that? One, it's got to be the personal choice of the individual, number one, as far as it starts with knowledge of self. And I think why that gets lost in translation, I don't think people have a thorough understanding of themselves, their history, or true knowledge and how to apply it. Because I think what happens is we live in a society where people just want to follow and do what's hip and what's trendy. Because look, there's some people that are so naive. If some rapper came out tomorrow, you know, walking everywhere with a hula hoop, you know how many people would just take suit and file and just walk everywhere with a hula hoop because one of their favorite rappers is doing it. So I think a lot of it's got to do with lack of knowledge of self, not understanding. I mean, look, I used to always tell the young kids back in the day, one thing I never agreed with, even the older school hip hop culture, especially when gangster rap came in, like the big thing would be, you know, your pants falling off your ass. That's nothing new. That's old shit we was doing back in the 80s. And, you know, no shoelaces. And we know when we do a history of that, that comes from jail. They take your belt and your shoelaces first thing so you don't hang yourself. You don't hurt yourself or hurt others. So I always would look at that as a subconscious thing, like, why would you want to walk around showing the masses? To me, it's like saying I'm a target and my destination is to end up somewhere in jail. That's what you're saying. So I'm using these little analogies to get you to see, I think the indoctrination process we go through these methods is what causes even your question about being emasculated, because it's lack of knowledge of self. How many clients I will deal with that don't even really understand or embrace their sexuality? They're confused because of indoctrination. So long story short, it's a great question, but it starts with the individual. You got to have understanding and knowledge of yourself, first and foremost, before you can even understand that question. But I think the problem lies where it starts with society, the culture, the music, the educational system, and then the political correctness. You got to be careful because now everybody's politically correct. Excuse me. You know, and I'm saying this to say, look, I want to be clear. You know this, and I know your question didn't come from a place of hate. I know that. I want to make this clear. You know, this is not being said to discriminate or offend anybody, but I'm a firm believer on taking a stance on something. I believe we have too much people that want to straddle the fence and they don't express their true emotions. And I give you the courage for expressing, you know, that's how you feel. And you didn't do it in a hateful or resentful way. And I stand on that. And I think that's what we need to do. To me, that's part of the process of having knowledge of self. You have to have some ideals, regardless if they're personal or not. You have to have some ideals. You have to have some type of structure and foundation that you stand on. But I would say that. And then, you know, you're teaching and educating, especially, I think one thing that corrects this emasculate, we got to get these young kids when they're young. That's the problem too, because what happens is they get lost in transition because how many kids get just forced in front of a TV all day and they're not taught correctly? Think about it. They're taught, this is where they learn everything, from the movies, from TV. And if it's not from the movies or TV, then it's from being in school or out in public. Because we're not doing our job as parents or elders, we're not teaching them, giving them the foundation and giving them the ability to make their own choices and decisions. That's a huge problem in this too, because we don't get these kids at a young age where we can give them the right instruction. By the time we get to them, they ain't trying to hear shit. You know, they you know, now they're into all this hip hop stuff. You can't tell them nothing. They're pimps and hustlers and all this other shit. So hopefully that points you in the right direction. It's knowledge of self, brother. That's the best thing I could tell you. You gotta have an understanding of who you are and what your role in things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So anyway, hopefully that answers you. Anything else you got, brother?
No, that's it. I appreciate it. Always, brother.
All right, no, I appreciate it. Appreciate the call. Thank you.
Yep. Have a good one.
You too. All right. I think we're all I really wanted to talk on. I just hopefully, yeah, that's a good point by Mitchell. Some adults need it just as much just as much as the youth, because there's a lot of ignorant old folks out here too. So you are right. I'm not going to exclude us from the equation, but one of our duties, I've always said, is to teach. When we have the knowledge and we have the ability, where need be. Now, when I say teach and educate, obviously that's when you're coming across people that are receptive to it. I'm not saying to force your ideologies and your understanding on somebody, because that doesn't work. That we don't do that. All right. I want to make that clear. But when you come across a situation that presents itself, it is your duty to teach and educate when you have the knowledge. You're doing a disservice when you're coming across somebody that might be sincere and willing that they want it. You're coming across them and not doing your job. We can correct a lot of these things that we talk about. So in my opinion, when you claim to be a god or a goddess on this path, you have the duty to teach when the situation presents itself. All right. Anyway, yeah. So if you came in late, we addressed a lot of the vampiric topics, the vampiric elements. So go back and watch when the show uploads. I'm gonna wrap this up because again, there's little issues with the connection. So hopefully that answered some of your questions. We'll get Father Sebastian back on a future show. Got our secret agent 007 over here behind me. And then it's, remember, on Tuesday, August 6th, we're going to have Bal Cadman back on the show to talk about, the void and darkness, the Clepothic realm. We're going to come and explore that topic even more depth on August 8th. We're going to have Sister Oni on. She's going to talk about self-understanding and self-realization, which is a very important topic on this path. That'll be on August 8th. On the 13th, which will be the final show before we head to New York, I'll probably do something on that night unless I get somebody to fill that spot. I'm not sure yet. I'm trying to take a break for a couple months. But as of now, I'll probably do some type of show. There will be no show on August 15th, which is 2 Thursdays from now. We will be in New York that weekend. And then on August 22nd, following Thursday, we'll have Dr. Edward Bruce Bynum back on the show. I'm looking forward to that topic because he's going to be discussing ancient, what was it? Shit, I can't even remember the damn topic. Ancient science and modern ancient civilizations and modern science. I'm sorry, I mixed it up. Yeah, Mel, yes, we're doing a get-together on August 17th. To you, Mel Casey. We are having a meetup with a group of people in New York City that watch and support the channel. We're going to meet Saturday evening, August 17th, in Midtown Manhattan. We're going to meet right there on 34th and 7th, right across the street from Penn Station. We're going to meet up at the McDonald's. We ain't eating at McDonald's. We're going to grab something to eat and possibly walk down to 6th Avenue and 34th, right there to the park, and have a kind of build session. So if you're interested in attending that, send me an email and I'll put you on the list if you're available that day. Yes, that's the upcoming event for the 17th. It's a Saturday night. I figure because I'm coming home for that week. I figure it would be a good night. That appears for most people. I know work and career is different nowadays. People work all types of days and crazy hours. That just seemed to be the most convenient day and time. So for yourself, Mel, or anybody else in the New York City area that wants to link up that night, I'm going to be putting the group email together tomorrow to keep everybody in contact so we have a head count. It's looking like it's about 12 people right now or more. That could change over the next 2 weeks and increase. I know Angel's coming. There's a bunch of so I'm looking forward to it. We're going to have a good time, get some grub, and whatever you guys want to talk about, let's do it. So that'll be on the 17th. We got the ritual on the 30th. Mel, so I don't forget before this goes off, my email's in the description box. Hit me up with an email because I'll probably forget when I get off. Just hit me up. You'll see the email in the description box. Just title it New York Meetup, and I'll put you on the list. And that's been out there listening. That's in the New York City area. If they want to attend that gathering on the 17th. All right. I'm hoping we can even possibly go somewhere discreet and maybe do a minor working outside somewhere, some type of ritual. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how the night evolves. But I'm hoping we can at least incorporate some type of working. I got some ideas, something we can do discreet, but we'll see what happens. So that's on the 17th, and then we got the ritual on the 30th of this month, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time here in North Fort Lauderdale. So if you're able to attend to that, hit me up. All right, anyway, that's it, people. I got to get out of here. I do got some stuff I need to get to before the night is out. Appreciate everybody tuning in, and we will see everybody on Tuesday night. Peace. Till next time.